Ladies and gentlemen, so today is that super fun time at the start of every single month where we update the Marvel Contest of Champions tier list, and we got quite a few new additions today and changes with the introduction of Havoc, Mr. Sinister, we've got the buffs to Spider-Gwen and She-Hulk, and also the upcoming buff to Gamora, but Gamora is a little bit more of a question mark just right now because we don't know anything about her buff. However, with the Spider-Gwen and She-Hulk ones, it was confirmed on the forum that She-Hulk is apparently going to be exactly the same as Beta, according to Kabam Mike, but there might be some more changes to Spider-Gwen, positive changes, so Spider-Gwen might be buffed even further before release. But for this tier list today, for the start of the month, we're just going to go on the beta version of Spider-Gwen and talk about some of the stuff that the champions can do now. But both of the revamps, man, very, very solid. Have taken two characters that, you know, were borderline benched here for a lot of people, especially She-Hulk, and turned them into like such crazy options that have like a lot of utility as well. So I'm really, really impressed with the buffs. But anyway, let's start off by talking and giving the standard disclaimer actually for the tier list that this is just, you know, a very, very rough guide to what champions I believe are good in Marvel Contest of Champions, broadly speaking. You know, the game is incredibly complicated. There are so many different modes of gameplay: Alliance Quest, Alliance War, Questing, Variant, Labyrinth, Realm of Legends, all sorts of challenges, and depending on the nodes, the characters, certain champions, and certain abilities are much, much more useful than other ones. So yeah, the game is incredibly complicated, thousands and thousands of different matchup scenarios. So, you know, it's very foolish to ever assume that one champion is always better than all the other champions, and there's no like absolute like top characters in this game, because again, depending on what factors come into play, certain champions that might not be very valuable do become really, really valuable. So yeah, the game's just bloody complicated is the short one to that, and this is my opinion of all the characters on a comparative spectrum to each other, all the way from Archangel to Deadpool, X-Force, and the Beyond God tier to the meme tier there. So yeah, a huge disparity in terms of champion power levels, at least in my opinion anyway. But anyway, let's talk about some of the two new champions. We've got Havoc and Mr. Sinister. So Havoc is coming in straight at the God tier, even unawakened, even without the large benefit from high signature levels or synergies, because just on his own, man, Havoc can do so much. This champion, he seems like fairly like straightforward at first in terms of like the mechanics and utility that he has, but he has like such good base utility that he can get through so much different stuff. So to cover some of the highlights of Havoc, really, the first thing is that you've got insane Special 3, man. The Special 3 is absolutely huge, which can be used to, you know, deal a ton of damage, but also burst through a lot of very problematic fight phases. So that is insane there as well. He also has very high energy resistance, which mitigates champions like magic, and also any energy-based champions or attacks. He also has non-contact attacks, so he doesn't take any damage from champions like Korg and Electro. So that's absolutely insane there. Also, his damage is very high energy damage output, so there are a lot of scenarios with like a lot of physical resistance, and he, you know, completely can blast through those. He also has Incinerate immunity as well for matchups like Mephisto and also Map 7 Incinerate nodes, so super valuable there. He is also Havoc immune, and that's like a pretty big thing at the moment, man, because not many champions can actually handle Havoc too well in terms of the matchup, especially when it comes to Alliance War. So I think we're going to see a lot of value in people taking up Havoc to fight Havoc in Alliance War, but also Angela and Vision have very, very good matchups against Havoc as well. He also has a very strong heavy attack with a good damage over time component, and also the way that kind of his excess plasma charges spill onto the opponent. These can synergize with Despair and help to heavily mitigate certain nodes like Masochism, which can be a huge problem for certain people. So yeah, Havoc just has like so many little bits and pieces that all add up to make him like such a top tier character. So for me at least, he goes straight into the God tier because he's being used already to kind of kill Thing bosses in Alliance War and for various problematic scenarios there. So just an absolute banger of a champion. And Mr. Sinister is a very interesting character. It's some somewhat quirky utility, but some very good base stuff to have. So The first thing he has is he's immune to control reversals, and this can be good if you're fighting Emma Frost and don't want to, you know, reverse your controls there. But also we're seeing a new node occasionally pop up. Every single week map 7 is randomized, so this is not all the time, but it's a node called Delirium, which reverses like your dash and dodge, and that node sucks unless you have a robot or a champion that is immune to mind control, and Mr. Sinister is probably the best non-robot champion that's immune to this mechanic. So that's pretty valuable there. Heavy attack also pauses debuffs, so this can be very, very useful, and it has a very cool synergy as well with the Suicide Masteries to deal a fair bit more damage there, but for certainly parries and getting, you know, perfect Bane transfers in certain scenarios can be quite nice there. Also does regenerate 70% of critical damage if you do mess up. Mr. Sinister, for this reason and the way that his regeneration mechanic works when hit, primarily is going to make him so popular for Alliance War defense, especially in kind of the Corvus Ghost meta that we've got going on at the moment. But yeah, Mr. Sinister is going to be so good for that. But again, primarily a defender thing, but it can be, you know, occasionally useful on offense as well. The special one transfers debuffs, so can be great fun again to play with the Suicide Masteries, because you can just chuck the Suicide Masteries to bleed the poison onto the opponent. It's not as broken as it was on the very first day, where, you know, people were like nuking down Labyrinth bosses with it, but, you know, it deals an alright amount of damage. It's a nice little bonus there and gets those debuffs off you. And also has an awesome power lock synergy with MODOK, Kingpin, and Ultron, and his Special 2 and Special 3 have some very solid ability accuracy reduction mechanics as well, which I think are probably one of the stronger points of the character. 100% ability accuracy reduction for 6 seconds on the Special 2 and 12 on the Special 3. And Jay, you can pause this as well, so you can get even more value out of it with the heavy attacks there. So yeah, I think Mr. Sinister, he's one of the stronger champions that I would consider in my high demigod tier. I think he maybe has some god tier potential in the future, but I'm going to keep a very, very close eye on Mr. Sinister, because I think there is a bit of an argument for him being god tier, but he doesn't have the absolute best damage output in the world, and I think he is still lacking a little bit of utility in comparison to you know, some of the top options for certain stuff. But definitely, like, with his Awakened ability, you can get, like, a load of additional effects and quests and kind of ramp up the champion a little bit more, but you also do need to have him Awakened as well. But the power gain, attack, and all sorts of fun stuff can, you know, synergize very, very well with his existing stuff. So that's pretty good there. Then we have the buffs to She-Hulk and Spider-Gwen, and if you haven't already checked them out, man, there's so much gameplay, especially on the channel archives, if you want to have a little bit of a look there. But She-Hulk is coming in at the god tier just because overall she has more damage ramp up potential and a much better heal reversal mechanic. So I think her utility is much more desirable than Spider-Gwen's, and her damage ramp up in kind of bigger scenarios is so much crazier than Spider-Gwen's as well. So out of the two new character buffs, like She-Hulk has definitely got the slightly better one, but again, Spider-Gwen could be buffed even more, so that is something to keep in mind as well. But She-Hulk, some of the reasons, Fury ramp, again, is just insane, man. If you've seen some of the Labyrinth kills, it's probably, you know, one of the top 5 in the game, but it is a little bit tricky to maintain though. Also more Fury, she's got a very, very strong taunt mechanic. The Special 1 reduces power gain buffs. Her Special 2 has a 15-second ability that even unawakened blocks healing and then reduces and reverses it by 15% as well, and then that can stack on if you've got additional debuffs on top, if you've got the Despair Mastery. So you've actually got one of the most solid heal reversals and blocks in the game, with She-Hulk's Special 2 that lasts again for 15 seconds. That is a very, very long amount of time. But some of the disadvantages of She-Hulk: small champions, long Special 1s, and skill characters, because she does need to bait out special attacks in order to ramp up her Fury there. And also her heavy attack removes Unstoppable and applies a slow debuff, which prevents the opponent from triggering Unstoppable and evade effects. So that's a counter to kind of both of those mechanics, which are very, very annoying at the moment. And then we have Spider-Gwen. So Spider-Gwen actually has some pretty decent ramp up damage above 70-80 hits, but it's nowhere near the ramp up potential of She-Hulk, although she does hit very, very hard and is very, very fun to play now. Via her Special 1, she is an Innovate, which is kind of like a gimped power lock, which means that when you hit into the opponent, they don't generate power, but they, you know, if they have other ways to gain power, they will, like a passive power gain, for example. But the Special 1 Innovate can be very, very powerful in certain matchups, but sometimes if you get bad RNG, you can't have 100% uptime on it, so it doesn't make her the the ultimate power control queen, and she, you know, doesn't quite rival magic, but it's very, very effective if you have kind of the right luck and the right scenario. So that can be quite nice as well. Also via the special 2, she has the same old stun that she has, but now it also has a healing and power gain reversal when awakened, and this can be very, very valuable. But the problem with this one in comparison to She-Hulk's is you do need to be able to stun the opponent, and it only lasts for 4 seconds. So if there's a quick burst of regeneration or a quick burst of power gain that you want to try and avoid, you can throw that down and it will kind of reverse it. But if the opponent can't be stunned, then you can't fire it off. Whereas, you know, with She-Hulk, regardless of the stun immunity status, you can still, you know, guarantee that you reverse the healing and also the power gain there as well. So that's really, really valuable. And also, yeah, special 3 activates Super Hunter Spider mode, which gives you 55% more damage on top of all of her stacks. She kind of, as well, for Spider-Gwen, I've got with the synergy, because if you have the Venom synergy, you've got something like, I think it's about 60 to 90% more attack. I think it actually is 60% more attack once you've got all the charges. That's pretty huge for Spider-Gwen. So ideally, you do want to bring one of the Venom characters along to kind of pump up her damage a little bit more. So there is a great amount of benefit from that. But also in comparison to She-Hulk, Spider-Gwen's Heavy does not remove Unstoppable. However, it lasts a little bit longer. It lasts for 18 seconds and blocks out. It's the same slow debuff. It blocks out Unstoppable, it blocks out Evade, so it makes Spider-Gwen a really, really good counter for a lot of Evade champions that can be stunned, or, you know, scenarios where you can find an opportunity to weave in that heavy attack as well. So that's pretty damn cool there. Also, just for comparative sake as well, I have had to move down a few champions that I just don't think are really kind of cutting quite where they were on the previous iteration. I've demoted Killmonger from God tier to high demigod tier. I just feel like comparatively, like Killmonger, he's just not being played in the top tier. He's not kind of the best option really for anything anymore, but he's still very good for Alliance War defense, and he's still a great champion for a lot of mid-game players. You know, if you're doing stuff like Act 5 100% and the first chapter of Varian, he can be very, very useful, and he's by no means a trash character. I just don't think he is currently just up there in God tier, just in my opinion anyway. And then we also have Heimdall. I moved Heimdall down just because I think playing Heimdall, he's very slow, he's a little bit clunky. I thought he wasn't really deserving of high demigod tier anymore, but Heimdall, I will say this, man, he's still got some solid utility. Low demigod tier is still really, really good ranking. He's still got the True Strike, and the synergies on Heimdall are so incredibly amazing, but the majority of the time, a lot of people just used Heimdall for his synergies. They just have him in the team for that when it comes to endgame, but he's still a bloody fantastic champion to pick up, so he's a proper good one there. And then what else do we have? I also moved Sentry down one as well. I kind of feel like with the way that Sentry's awakened ability works and the amount of kind of effort you need to put into ramping up this champion, he is more in line with a lot of the champions that I consider low demigod tier than the ones that I do high demigod tier. So I thought that was, you know, just in my opinion, a little bit more of an appropriate place there. But I have moved up 2 champions. I've moved up Angela, because Angela is turning out to be one of the best, if not the best, Havoc counter in the game. And Havoc, again, has a very, very small list of counters at the moment that are exclusive to, like, you know, himself, Vision, and Angela. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of value in, like, 6-star Angelas in the future and taking down Havocs. And Angela, she's a very, very hard-hitting champion. You know, you can mitigate a good amount of the damage you take via her regeneration as well, which is a great time. And I also moved Electra up because that shock immunity is just proving so valuable for so many players when it comes to certain stuff. If you've got like a stacked 5-star one in Alliance Quest Map 7, but also in the final chapter of Variant as well. So he's gone from occasionally useful to pretty useful. So yeah, I think that's a bit more of an appropriate ranking for Electro. But aside from that, ladies and gentlemen, pretty much all is the same with the tier list, so kind of a few adjustments here and there, but I'm very interested to get your thoughts on kind of this month's update to the tier list. Again, as a standard disclaimer, I think pretty much, you know, a good 90% of the champions in this game have some very solid and interesting uses throughout various components of the game. And just because a champion isn't God tier or beyond God tier, it doesn't mean they're a useless champion. It just means that comparatively, I think there are slightly better champions. I really do like pretty much all of the champions above low demigod tier, and even a lot of the ones toward the right-hand side of this tier list as well. But at the end of the day, just use this for what it is, a very rough guide to what I believe are some of the most valuable characters currently in Marvel Contest of Champions, and the ones that are worth looking into. Definitely make your rank up decisions based on watching, you know, people's gameplay and seeing, you know, if that champion is going to be useful and relevant for what you're trying to do next in Marvel Contest of Champions. This game is all about figuring out, you know, what am I trying to do next? What kind of utility do I need? What kind of mechanics do I need to get past the challenge that is in front of me at the moment? So with that state of mind is the right way to approach progression, in my opinion. But yeah, just kind of standard tier list disclaimers there, lads. But anyway, thank you so much for watching today's tier list update video for March 2019. If you did enjoy it, feel free to smash that like button. That'd be greatly appreciated. But aside from that, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.